Hi guys, when I make these things, they're never scripted. I might have ideas ruminating around my head, and then just as though you were sat there, which you are, hopefully, I unload, and it's going to be one of those. But in keeping with the world as it is today, it's not the lightest of rambles. First time I can remember as an adult meeting with Zionism was back in my Polytechnic days, in Sunderland Polytechnic, 84, 85. And I will have mentioned this before, but it was my first meeting with it, and at that time, and for many decades afterwards, I was not fully understanding of what Zionism actually was, and I had no great wish to go nosing around in there, because it just would mean risking being labelled an anti-Semite. I mean, that's how little I understood, obviously, back then. My paternal grandfather is Polish Jew, and my father grew up in the 30s in the poorer part of Salford and around, well, close by the Jewish quarters, and he was frightened to reveal his heritage because of the real anti-Semitism that was rife at that time. And obviously we know what then happened. But yes, I was sort of touched with that. I didn't want to shame my grandfather by saying things that I didn't understand. I heard all the memes, and they were always backed up, so Jewish names in global banking organisations, Jewish names in Hollywood studios, you know, the great global conspiracy, but it's not Judaism or Jewish people. It was always a front for the Zionist endeavour. And now we're kind of getting to peak Zionism. And I have to understand that there'll be many people out there, like I was for so many decades, not willing to engage because they're frightened of their own ignorance and the fact that they might unknowingly upset people by what they speak of, the things that they witness as their truths. Sunderland Polytechnic, it was also the first time I met face to face with Palestinian blokes the same age as me, but also saw the terror in their eyes about having their identities exposed, because what it would mean to grandma and grandpa back in Palestine and their home, their lands, their crops, if their faces and names were splashed all over UK media. Now, as it became, now I remember the front page headlines on the broadsheets and pictures of rallies of people supporting Sunderland Polytechnic, JSOC, they called it, Jewish Society. The whole thing centered around the inclusion of the word Zionism at the header for the club, and the NUS and obviously the Palestinian lads who were taking ship's captains qualifications actually nearby in Sunderland, but they didn't want the word Zionism there. Right, surely it was enough to be defined and declared as Jewish. You didn't need that. But anyway, I backed off. My best friend at the time, the guy that taught me guitar, was one of the head honchos in the JSOC and highly involved, and I just did not wish to offend or upset. But I will never forget hearing the tales that the Palestinian lads gave us at one of the meetings that I attended, and seeing that very real fear in their eyes. Spin on. 40 years. 40 bloody years. And here we are, and maybe the mad bastards have gone too far. Maybe the Zionists have overplayed their hand. I first started picking away at it in 2015, was it, when we had that Easter uprising of Zionist supporting friend of Israel neo-lib Labour MPs rebelling against Corbyn, and being a deep supporter of Corbyn, he was speaking everything that I'd wished for and in my own little way pushed for the whole of my active adult life. To see that being so callously attacked with such untruths, and the frustration in that he would not rise to it, like with a lot over the Corbyn years, where he is a man and he has his ways, and he is obviously well learned in sitting in difficult situations. I don't know how many peace awards he's won. I'm sorry, I'd be fighting in lumps on the floor. I'm not as controlled as he. But it did make me examine just what was happening. And again, that Z word kept popping up. There were so many people of non-Jewish heritage who were acting as though it was their personal offence, yet none of it was offensive that I could see. The fact that one ethnicity, that one religious ethnicity also contains this parasite that uses elements of that people's religions to support and defend, but more importantly to enable them to throw around accusations of anti-Semitism, to silence any type of criticism. The cogs began turning. What we've been seeing since April, and I do condemn what Hamas did. I am a peaceful bunny, but I have not lived the lives that they have for generations. I have not been put through what they have been put through, and everyone has a breaking point, but boy, no. So yes, I condemn that, unreservedly condemn that as a man of peace. But what we've seen, supposedly as a justifiable retaliation to the horrors committed to them, and we're 10 months into it now. Please, this is not some tit-for-tat retaliation. What Iran is about to do in that area is retaliation for an event that happened on their soil. The last time they retaliated, it was an attack on their embassy, sovereign territory, again an attack on them. So they had that, the same as Israel had the right to retaliate. But is this just retaliation? No, a lot of people have been forced both to grapple with their own ideas of themselves and whether they are anti-Semitic. But of course most of them will find that they're not. They're anti-Zionist. They have no qualms with the Jewish people. They have no qualms with Judaism or the Torah, you know, or as much issue as they would have with the Quran or the Holy Bible, you know. But Zionism, that's something else. It's a political ideology dressed up in pseudo-religious justifications. As a child, there was a debate raging about whether television cartoon violence was desensitizing kids to violence, or even causing violence. It's been on to my own lad's sort of teen years, early teen years, and his Call of Duty and the rest of those shoot 'em up type of games. The debate was there again whether they were being desensitized too. But what we've witnessed over the past 10 months, it's not no make-believe, it's not some pencil-drawn pictures, it's not some pixels, it's a record of the most horrendous and horrific slaughter. Needless, heartless, callous slaughter of infants, children, women and menfolk that I think the world has ever seen 24/7 in glorious technicolor. And yes, it's having its effect. It's kind of highlighting that there is only one element of society that are to a person supporting Israel, allowing arms to be sent, allowing funding to be sent, be it America, be it England, be it European countries, that there is a majority of people that are just appalled by what they see. And they have to come to terms with the fact that their politicians are allowing this. The international courts of justice have made all manner of proclamations. Nobody can be in any doubt what is occurring there. Nobody can be in any doubt who is in the dock. And yet, just a few weeks back, they get standing ovations, stood in the American House, from both sides of the House. It's not about religion, it's not about ideologies. It seems to be just about money and power. And you mustn't remain ignorant of the fact that the monies that are fed into the far-right, Zionist, plausibly genocidal Netanyahu government then get filtered back into government of the US, of the UK, of Europe, via various mechanisms. In the UK you've got the Conservative Friends of Israel, you've got the Labour Friends of Israel. In America you've got this huge AIPAC, is it? So they're just recycling money, and they're buying off politicians, and they're buying off, well, they're buying control. And I think a lot of people are turning around to the fact that They are being controlled because they have no control. They tried to stop the ceasefire marches by labelling them something that they most certainly are not, never were, and were never intended to be. Luckily, recently, we've had the horrific sight of what a hate march looks like in many towns across the UK, and seen exactly what it means. And if you compare and contrast, you can see that the peace marches bear no resemblance to all of that. And yet that is whipped up by the same people that are taking monies to turn their back on atrocities, to other-sided. There were fine people on both sides kind of deal. It has to end. It has to end. And if our governments are not willing to be the ones to facilitate that, then it's up to the people to try and find their own way of stopping it. It's either by boycotting goods and services out of Israel, so attacking their financial security, but it's also by singling out the people who are, for no other reason it would appear than the monies they receive, going that extra mile for the far-right Zionist, plausibly genocidal state of Israel. They will not stop of their own volition. That much is clear. Anyway, I've rambled far too long, so have a pleasant Friday, folks.